Good evening, everyone. So Kunal is a bit busy today, so I'll be chairing the session. I'm Dr. Kriti. I'm a rheumatologist at Noida. So I would like to invite everyone to today's session of the Immunology Conclave. So we have a very interesting session ahead on chronobiology of allergic disorders. I would like to invite Dr. Anuj Shukla, sir, who's a senior rheumatologist at Ahmedabad for today's session. Sir, please.
And good evening, everyone. So it's a great honor for me to invite one of the most senior allergy specialist, Dr. K Vedanthan. We did not, we don't require any much of introduction for him. He has already taken two very basic allergy talks, and to take those talks in such a lucid way and make us understand. For this, you require a great experience, which he holds, and we have given him a third challenge of chronobiology of allergic diseases, and we are eager to learn from him. Thank you, sir, for accepting the invitation, and as a part of Rheumatology Association Gujarat Secretary, I invite you to take the talk.
Thank you, Dr. Shukla. Thank you very much. Thank your organization for inviting me to speak to you. So today's, can I go ahead and share?
Yes, sir.
It says sharing not turned on. Can you please turn it on? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So tonight we'll talk about another unusual topic, sleep and allergy, because this is a very impactful issues. Both sleep and allergy impact each other. So we need to learn more about it. So this is, I also had another talk similar to this chronobiology, but I thought this will be a lot more useful for you. So I just put this on. So before we go into the sleep issue, we will just revise a few slides on what is allergy, which you already know very well, because you have gone through an extensive program online about allergy and allergy disorders. So we'll just briefly mention what is allergy, what's the mechanism, what's the pathophysiology, what's the connection to the sleep, that is the chronobiology of allergy, what is the impact between sleep and allergy, and what are the therapeutic options that we have. So definition of an allergy, like we all know, it is an immunological reaction, which is an exaggerated immunological reaction that are against substances that are generally very harmless to most of us. We don't even notice them. You don't notice dust or dust mite or pollens. You don't even think about it. But your immune system, if you are a atopic person or an allergic person, your immune system recognizes these very benign substances as major offenders. So it reacts against these benign substances, we call it antigens, in a significant way, and that causes the allergic disease. And it's a very classical example of gene environment interaction, and you already know that very well. There are two basic defects. One is a compromised epithelial barrier function. Your epithelium and the skin, the mucous membrane of your GI tract, respiratory tract, and the skin. These, these are huge organs. These are huge organs. You may be 5'6" or 5 or 6 feet, doesn't matter. If you go ahead, take the epithelial tissue that you have and spread it across around you, it will occupy almost 50 to 75 feet around you. So we are interacting with the environment in a very huge manner, each one of us, without even being aware of it. You are not aware of it because the system works so efficiently that you don't even know that you are interacting with the environment because we have such an efficient system. And there are a couple of terminologies that we always use: atopy, sensitization, allergy. I won't go into that much because you already have had classes on it. And this is the a diagram that shows that epithelial integrity is compromised. When the epithelial integrity is compromised, you have entry of these environmental substances like allergens, pathogens, pollutants through that compromised epithelium. Why am I showing this? Because all these items, all these tissues, all epithelial cells, the epithelial integrity, the immune cells are all involved in the sleep mechanism. They are all involved in the sleep mechanism, and which we are going to talk about. And this is the familiar diagrammatic fashion of an allergic inflammation, where you have the initial sensitization and the re-exposure, and you have the antigen-presenting cell, the T cell, the B cell, the mast cells, the release. And again, all these cells are involved in the sleep mechanism, which we are going to talk about. And again, all these things are occurring in the lymph nodes, this T and B cell interaction. And this is a cross section of the lymph node. There's a T cell area, B cell area, in the parafollicular area, in the T cell zone. And there's a B cell zone. That is where the interaction takes place. This is where the allergic inflammation takes place. It doesn't happen in your blood. It happens in your lymphoid tissue. And we have to be very much aware. The lymphatic system is a parallel system to our cardiovascular system. And it is actually larger than the cardiovascular system. But we don't pay much attention to it because we are all tuned as medical students only around heart and heart murmurs and cardiac issues and all that. But very little immunology is taught in the medical school. So we are not, our awareness about lymphatic system is very little as a medical student. But you being specialists, like being immunologists, your awareness is extremely high. And actually, I totally am aware of, I'm talking to a very learned audience here about immunology. And this is a normal mucous membrane where you have the intact cilia. The the basement membrane is pretty thin. And when you look in, and it's an intact epithelium. So when you look in somebody's nose who has got a normal mucous membrane, it is pink and it is shiny and it is smooth. But if you look at an allergic nose, it is pale, boggy, and irregular, and also mucousy and thickened. And because there is a significant amount of damage to the mucous membrane, huge amount of damage, and there's intense infiltration with all different type of inflammatory cells, thickening of the basement membrane, loss of mucociliary function. And because of all these things, the changes happen. And that is the manifestations of the allergic disease is a damaged mucous membrane. It is a continuous process of damage and repair and damage and repair, and that causes what causes the remodeling. And that's what you see in the nose. So one thing I want to tell you is the nose. When you look in the nose, which you should for all your patients, you should do nasal exam. You have to look in the nose because the nose is what gives you an idea what may be going on in your lungs. So let's move on to about the chronobiology of allergy. Now, we all know the biological clock is so efficient, it is just unbelievable. So you already know the answer. Which is better? We know it's the biological clock is much, much better. Something unbelievable. So let me just show you this video. I hope it will play.
Chronobiology is rooted in the work of 18th century French geophysicist, astronomer, and scientific journal editor Jean-Jacques Dortout de Marin. This director of the French Academy of Sciences in Paris spent the majority of his time in research and consulting reference books at his desk, from the early morning until well after dark. This led to a striking observation. The ornamental plant on his windowsill, a Mimosa pudica, demonstrated distinctive day and nighttime rhythm. Every morning its foliage opened, and every evening when the sun set, its foliage closed. This aroused the scientist's curiosity. How did the plant know whether it was morning or evening? Was the sun the key to the answer? And how would the plant respond when placed somewhere entirely free of sunlight or active knowledge of day or night? These questions led to an experiment. The astronomer and publisher of a well-known scientific journal placed his houseplant overnight in a cupboard. Of course, there were no cameras at the time to monitor the mimosa during the night. However, the next morning when he opened the cupboard doors, a startling sight awaited him. The leaves of the plant were completely unfilled, although it had had no direct exposure to sunlight that day. The scientist concluded that the mimosa must have some sort of built-in biological clock that let it know what time it is. These observations and findings marked the advent of chronobiology, a field of science that examines periodic phenomena in living organisms and their adaptation to solar and lunar-related rhythms. The science itself began to gain serious attention in the 20th century. Scientists have since proven that there are environmental clues that set the pace for all organic forms of life, plant, animal, or human. However, we're far from having all the answers. In the Chronobiology Research Department at Ludwig Maximilian University in Munich, scientists are working to isolate the genes that set the various modes of our biological clocks. They've been examining mold cultures, which demonstrate 24-hour cyclical behavior. But might its genes house the key to unlocking the secrets of our own biological clocks?
Naturally, the genes responsible for keeping mold's biological clock ticking differ from those that run our clocks, or those of a mouse or a hamster. In all likelihood, the biological clock reinvented itself numerous times over during the course of evolution, so that plants, microorganisms, mammals, and insects all have distinct genes that run their individual clocks. On the other hand, looking at the genes present in mold, we can get a basic idea of how they make up a biological clock in simple organisms, and then apply this general framework to animals and plants.
Auf die Funktion von anderen Genen in anderen Tieren oder Pflanzen.
Although chronobiology is not a young science, the metronome that rules our lives is still far.
So this movie or the video clip has given us some basic information what chronobiology is. And very important to be aware that every living organism or any type of organism or animal, whatever, which is living, has got the chronobiological phenomena. It is in the plant kingdom, it's in the animal kingdom, it is in the bacteria, it is in every cell that you can think of. So that is it is basically some genetic material that are present in these cells, and that is what works as a clock mechanism. So if you look at this diagram, the mechanism, there is what we call as a central clock and a peripheral clock. The biological clock is a central clock, which is in the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the thalamus, suprathalamus area. And this is directly influenced by the pineal gland, which we all have, that produces the melatonin. So there are what we call as certain stimuli, the light stimuli, the food, and the activity that are external stimuli. They are actually called Zeitgebers. These are the timekeepers. Zeitgeber is a German term. And this, say for example, the light from the retina goes to this thalamus, to the suprathalamic nucleus. And when it stimulates that, what it does is a message is sent to the pineal gland to produce less melatonin. Once the light comes on, once you're exposed to light, then the melatonin production by the pineal gland goes down. Once the melatonin production goes down, you are more awake. You lose the sleep. Melatonin is essential for sleep. Less melatonin, you are more awake. That's what happens. So once you put the light on, the melatonin gets shut off. And that is why the darkness is important. Whenever it is dark, melatonin is produced, and that's what makes you sleepy. And there are these Zeitgebers are these peripheral clocks in all our tissues, in our stomach, in our heart, in our lungs, in our kidneys, in our bladder. And these are what we call as peripheral clocks. They are all present in these different organs you have. And they work also in unison with the central clock in the thalamus. And that is how there is a sort of the mechanism is highly synchronized, and they work as a very efficient system. And what it does is the biological rhythm we have is what we call as a circadian rhythm, is sort of a 24-hour cycle. This is present in all living organisms. And these clocks are endogenous timekeeping mechanisms that drives this circadian rhythm. So this rhythm is very much essential for normal functioning of all our tissues, because you have these peripheral clocks in all organs. And to have this perfect balance between the central clock and the peripheral clock is very essential. And if that balance is broken, then you have a disturbed pattern of sleep as well as the functioning of these organs. So the circadian rhythm is very much in sync with the function of our body in all different systems. So the Zeitgebers are the time givers. There are peripheral, the main ones are the light, the physical activity, and the food. But you can also have internal Zeitgebers from the stomach. If you are hungry, you get a signal. If you want to go to go to the bathroom, you get another signal. And so there are the peripheral clocks that are working right there, and they send the message, and that is how the timing comes. So one of the ways it works is once the time is set, it wakes you up at that particular hour, 3:30. People have to go to the bathroom. People have to, and at 6 o'clock, and they just wake up, or 5 o'clock, they just wake up because of this mechanism between central clock and the peripheral clock. So this has to work in unison. So anything that alters this sync causes disease pattern, both physical and mental. So this diagram is showing you that circadian rhythm, this type of activity, it will affect every cell that we are talking about in our specialty. It will affect the epithelial cell, the skin of the mucous membrane or the skin, the dendritic cell, the basophils, the mast cells, the eosinophils, the T cell, the B cell, and also it can affect the innate lymphoid cells, the macrophages. All these things are affected by the circadian rhythm. So this is an incredibly efficient system that has to work along with this mechanism that we have. So when that is disturbed, then you get the disease pattern. This is a very interesting type of clock. It's called chronobiologic clock. It is showing us what we call as the peak incidence of the event. That is acrophase, we call it. Say, for example, at 24, at midnight, epidermal mitosis occurs. The maximum amount of shedding of the skin occurs at midnight. And if you come down the cycle, around 4 o'clock, it says asthma, or diabetic ketoacidosis or stroke. So for us, asthma, so the maximum amount of asthma exacerbation occurs around between 12 to 4 a.m. If you look at lung functions, the lung functions are the worst at 4 a.m., the best at 4 p.m. Okay. As you move down the clock, you will have significant symptoms affecting the upper airways, the rhinitis, and you know that a lot of cardiac events occurs in the early morning, and that is again a chronobiological phenomena. And you have the best lung functions around 4 o'clock. And I don't know how people can have the best, it says mental performance at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but that's what this slide is showing. And this is a very, very interesting chronobiological clock telling you that all the different functions of our body in every system is influenced by this phenomena, which means that our body, both the internal environment, external environment we have around the cell, both the internal milieu and external milieu are dynamic. They are not constant. They are changing all the time because of this mechanism. Sorry. So when you have disruption of this mechanism, say there is people are waking up, especially with globalizations, people are working at odd hours. They work all night, especially people in India working for IT companies in the US or UK and all that. They have to work at night, and that is when they're supposed to sleep. And they also that is because, and then the circadian rhythm get disturbed, and their functions, all the bodily functions get all messed up, and they don't feel good, and that over a period of time that can cause significant disease patterns. Now, for us in our specialty, it has been shown that circadian clock influences even the epithelial integrity. That means if your circadian rhythm is disturbed, your epithelial integrity is compromised much more, and it will affect immune functions. So one of the ways immune functions are influenced is through melatonin. Melatonin is an immunomodulator, and when the melatonin is decreased, and that actually messes up the immune functions. And other thing that also we need to know is the sleep. We also produce growth hormone at night. So when the sleep is disturbed, and the growth hormone is not only essential for growth but also for healing. So if you don't sleep well, your healing doesn't occur. What do you mean by healing? The repair of all the damaged tissues. So if you have inflammation and you have damaged tissues, they don't heal well. If you don't sleep well, you don't heal well. If you don't sleep well, your immune system is weak. You are more prone for infections, or you are more prone for for inflammatory diseases because of this imbalance in your immune system. So clock dysfunction definitely can influence the allergic disease. So the allergic diseases that we encounter, like allergic rhinitis, atopic dermatitis, asthma, urticaria, all these, and eczema, atopic dermatitis especially, they are all nighttime diseases, because at night is when the melatonin production is low, the immune function is messed up, and they don't work well, and the inflammation increases, and that is when you have disturbed sleep, and disturbed sleep leads to more inflammation. So it becomes a vicious cycle, and during daytime you're more tired, the child is more tired, interferes with their academic activity, interferes with the working abilities of adults. So that is how the system, allergy is a systemic disease because it is closely linked with sleep. It is a systemic disease. It is closely linked with sleep, and majority of the people with allergies don't sleep well. So allergy does influence sleep. It influences daytime functioning, ethnic, especially there are some genetic differences, ethnic differences, racial differences. Black people, Asian people, and Hispanics, they are more prone than the white people for these disturbances. And sleep disordered breathing is more common in allergic diseases, and especially this when you have allergic rhinitis, and the nasal congestion is actually a risk factor for apnea and hypopnea, which occurs at night. So, and other thing we need to be aware of is sleep disorder is an inflammatory disorder. It produces similar type of interleukins, IL-4, IL-6, and all these inflammation interleukins are produced not only in inflammatory diseases like allergies, but also during sleep disorders. And both share the same mediators. And it, as it says here, this is very, very important for therapeutically for us, because if you treat allergies properly, you will sleep better. And if you sleep, and if you are sleeping better, your allergies get better. If you're sleeping better, your healing gets better. And that is how they go hand in hand. So whenever you are encountering a patient in your office, when you're asking the question, how are you doing? Patient says, I'm not bad. I'm not feeling too bad. That only he's talking about at that moment. But you have to ask, how was last night? How was last night for you? Did you sleep okay? And this is a very important question that needs to be asked about sleep pattern for every patient. Actually, you should have a little bit of a space in your history physical form for sleep, so that you can sort of figure out what type of a sleep pattern they have, because this is an important question for all our patients, because majority of our diseases occur at night. And these are all the different factors that can influence, like you have already have been exposed to all these things: anatomical, biological, environmental, individual type of habits, as well as family history, cultural, ethnicity. All these things will influence these two diseases. Now, a few words about melatonin. It's produced by the pineal gland, and maximum concentration occurs when you're sleeping well, and that is in the middle of the night. And it actually does more than promoting sleep. It actually reduces the severity of certain diseases like atopic dermatitis. It is not unusual to give melatonin to atopic dermatitis patients, because their sleep pattern is so disturbed, and also the sleep disturbance as well as atopic dermatitis are considered as two separate comorbid conditions. So a melatonin is given in these patients to help them to sleep better, as well as it works for atopic dermatitis. And it has got antioxidant as well as immunomodulator function. It enhances growth hormones. It promotes tissue healing. So melatonin is something we need to pay some attention to. Now, this is a slide which is showing that there is some sort of a very paradoxical type of relationship between epithelial barrier function and immune response. Say, for example, when you are at night, what happens is your immune system is you are more prone to have allergy attacks, because the epithelial barrier function is low at night. And at night, there is a significant immune response at the same time. So you have a lot more inflammation at night, but you have also got a weak epithelial integrity at night. So this is something, in one way it is protective, because at night, when you are more prone to have attacks by arthropod like house dust mites and all that, if the epithelial barrier is weak, the immune reaction which produces more inflammation actually is some sort of a protection against it, and that is how it works. But it also causes the disease because of the inflammation. So this response seems to be a sort of a defensive or protective in nature, because it is allergy is a protective mechanism. Actually, if you look at allergy, it actually is a protective mechanism, because the protection is so strong, you get the disease. And that's how it works. So this response, inflammation at night is actually a protective response against the weak epithelium or compromised epithelium, which is exaggerated. Compromised epithelium at night. Pardon? So if you look at sleep and allergies, most of the time, a lot of studies are done at the age group around 10 to 16, but it can occur even below 2 years of age. So you can have the same disturbances occurring very early in children's lives. Now, just simple allergic rhinitis, if you are seeing these patients, we always say, take a good history, because this is a systemic disorder. It is not just a disorder of the nose or eyes. You need to take the full history, see how the person is feeling. What it has been shown is 88% of these children with allergic rhinitis have disturbed sleep pattern. So most of these children do not sleep well at night, and they have 10 times more micro arousals compared to a normal child. So which means their sleep pattern is so disturbed. At daytime they are drowsy, they don't feel good, and that is one of the main reasons why these children do not feel too well, and they are not that don't have the pep and attention at school. And once you treat the allergies, it gets better, and the sleep gets better, and allergies get better. So this is something you need to be very much aware of. And atopic dermatitis is a major issue that you face in pediatric allergy. Here, sleep disorders are extremely common. Almost 85% of patients with atopic dermatitis do not sleep. It is not just itching and scratching. They have a poor sleep disorder due to inflammation. So poor sleep in these patients can occur as an independent comorbidity. It is not just just scratching and itching. These children cannot sleep well. So disturbed sleep pattern is almost considered as a comorbidity in atopic dermatitis. And they are also more prone for ADHD as well as short stature. Because of the disturbed sleep pattern, there is less melatonin that is produced, and growth hormone is affected. So they are also affected with short stature. And actigraphy is a non-invasive type of mechanism that will help us to do some objective measures to determine sleep disorder. But you can do this actual sleep study if you really want to get involved. So the message is, if you're taking care of a atopic dermatitis patient who is not doing too well, it is not only important to treat the atopic disorder, but also you have to take care of the sleep issues too. To getting involved, getting a sleep specialist involved is not a bad idea in these patients. And this is how close they are. Close. The look at the impaired quality of life, not only for children, even for adults too, and including parents also. These children have behavior problems. They have associated short stature. The whole family cannot sleep, and this has got a negative effect on mental health, social functioning. So the quality of life is extremely compromised in these patients. So you need to treat both atopic dermatitis and sleep disorder simultaneously. And having a sleep specialist involved in moderate to severe cases of atopic dermatitis is not a bad idea. And food allergy. Food allergy is also influenced by the time of food intake. It seems to be more severe at night. If you have anaphylaxis due to foods, it is much more severe at night, because of the epithelial integrity of the GI tract is compromised also at night. It is a lot more porous. So the reactions due to foods, if it is an allergic reaction, is much more at night. And that is one of the main reasons why people, when they go to dinner and they have these foods, when they get a reaction, is more severe, because of it is occurring at night. And the sleep duration and asthma, increased sleep, actually, if you have reduced sleep quality and efficiency, it's directly proportional to asthma severity. That means if you are having more asthma, you can't sleep well. And you not only have poor quality of sleep, but also reduced sleep duration. So frequent awakenings, subsequent nocturnal asthma is a major issue in these patients. 50% of the children have sleep issues. 1 to 5% have this obstructive sleep apnea syndrome. And this is obstructive sleep apnea syndrome is an inflammatory condition. In addition to the sleep, it can occur independently. And this is something sleep specialists take care and actually end up with medical surgery. And let's look at lung functions at 4 p.m. and 4 a.m. Normally, all of us at night have lower lung functions because of different reasons. Increased vagal tone, increased resistance, airway resistance increases. So the peak flow or the FEV1 drops at night, and it drops maybe around 10 to 15% in even normal people. But in people with asthma or people with nighttime symptoms, it drops 40 to 50%. So asthma exacerbations can occur very much commonly between 12 midnight and 4 a.m. That is when the exacerbations occurs. And if you look at asthma deaths that occur, it usually asthmatics die around this time in the early morning hours. So it's very, very important to keep the therapy at night adequate. So if you have a patient who is doing well and wants to reduce the medicines, it is very essential for us to tell them that it is important that they take the night medicine or the evening medications, because you don't want to stop the night medicines right away. You can actually reduce or stop the daytime medicine, but be careful about night medicine, because that is when the problem is more, and many times it is not appreciated. So it's very important that night medications should be continued on these patients, and you can let the patient not decrease this on his own, should be under physician's directions. So what are the features of asthma that occurs at night? At night, many things that happen. So how did we come to know so many things happening at night is because of an incredible type of research work that was done right at National Jewish Hospital in Denver, and where the Dr. Martin and Dr. Zeffler, Dr. Hendlers, all these people, very dedicated researchers who did um, did this research work at night. Most of the research that people do are during office hours, during daytime. But these type of research were done at night, and the patients were highly cooperative. And we need to thank these patients who cooperated to get so many procedures done at night, which included bronchoalveolar lavage, bronchoscopy, methacholine test, and several blood draws, blood gases, and all sorts of tests were done on these patients. Because of this, we have come to know some incredible data at what occurs at night. At night, the bronchodilator response is blunted. Even if you take an inhaled bronchodilator beta 2, it doesn't work as good at night compared to daytime, because at night the beta 2 adrenergic receptors themselves are reduced in number. Functionally also they are reduced. There's lowered functional capacity of the beta 2 receptors. There is a lowered response of these steroid binding receptors, lower binding of the steroids around 4 a.m. So all these things occur at night. So when they did this incredible research work at night, what they found is bronchial hyperresponsiveness actually increases significantly at night at 4 a.m. compared to on the left side you have people who have perfectly controlled asthma, no nocturnal asthma or anything, people who have got nocturnal asthma, and when they looked at this, their hyperresponsiveness is extremely high at around between 12 midnight and 4 a.m. It is very high because the methadone challenge was positive at a very low concentration. So there's a huge difference in bronchial hyperresponsiveness in this patient. Same thing with airway resistance, it increases significantly. And so this is something we need to be aware of. So one of the chronotherapeutic interventions, because of these chronobiological changes, we have what we call as chronotherapy. How do we handle these patients is chronotherapy. In chronotherapy, the beauty about it is not changing the dosage, but changing the timing makes a difference. And one of the drugs that we still use, not commonly used nowadays, but we still like to use theophylline, long-acting theophylline, because theophylline is a fantastic drug for nocturnal asthma. And it works more than a bronchodilator. If you look at the way theophylline works, it's not only a bronchodilator, it's a respiratory stimulant, improves muscle action, improves ciliary action. It has some anti-inflammatory action. It blocks microvascular permeability. So it has got multiple actions. So theophylline peaks around, say, around 8 to 10 hours. So important thing is you should give theophylline not at bedtime, but give it around 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock in the evening, so that the peak which comes around 10 to 12, 11, 12, 10 to 10 hours later, which will be that is when the disease process is high, around 3 a.m., 4 a.m. That is, we would like more theophylline floating in the blood to take care of these issues. So you need to just change the timing. Instead of, many times people take it at bedtime, just give it at 6 o'clock in the evening or 7 at the most, so that it peaks around 4 a.m. And this is a simple thing you can do. Same dosage, different timing. Now, coming to corticosteroids. So this was an experiment that was done. Very, very interesting type of experiment was done, where they looked at the overnight fall in FEV1, and looked at how much fall in FEV1 occurs depending upon changing the timing of the steroid, the same dosage, the same prednisone that is given at 8 a.m. and another group 8 p.m., another group 3 p.m. And is there a difference in the blocking or fall in the FEV1? They noticed that 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. were better than placebo for sure, but the 3 p.m. was the most effective. 3 p.m. prednisone blocked the overnight fall of FEV1 more efficiently than 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. So if you have a patient who you are doing everything right, but still having issues at night and not doing well, just change the timing of the dosage. Instead of giving in the morning or evening, give it in the afternoon. Giving this we are talking about systemic steroids. Giving systemic steroids around 3 p.m. seemed to do the best job. And when they looked at the inflammatory mediators, inflammatory cells, the bronchoalveolar type of findings, they found the mediators were decreased with the 3 p.m. dose much more than the 8 a.m. or the 8 p.m. And as well as the side effects like the cortisol effect. I don't know if I have that slide. It showed that the 3 p.m. dose has the least adrenal suppression to compare to 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. And this was also shown with inhaled steroid, giving inhaled steroid all in one single dose around 5:30 p.m., around in the evening, or between 3 to 5:30, say in the afternoon around 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, is as effective giving it 4 times a day. So these are some pearls that you get out of doing this chronotherapeutic research as well as chronobiological research, where just changing the time seems to make a difference in these type of patients. So what will be, these are just a few examples I'm giving you. There are several examples that are there for many different fields of that medicine we have. And the ideal time to see an allergist with these issues is before they go through the surgery, before tonsillectomy or any of these type of surgery. They should have an allergy referral, so the allergist can go ahead and figure out the allergic part and see if he can control the allergies. And by controlling the allergies, if you can get the sleep pattern better or the obstructive pattern better, then you may not need the surgery, or you can actually postpone the surgery. So I am going to stop soon, and some of these options that you already know, and these are some things that could be done before considering surgery for these patients. So I will just stop here and entertain any type of questions.
Thank you, sir. It was a very lucid talk. I cannot see
Where is the sharing. How do I stop? How do I stop the share?
So they would
Okay,
be a stop
I'm getting
sharing
it. I'm
option.
getting
Yeah.
it. I'm
Yeah.
getting it. I think it came somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, stop share. Yeah, any questions or comments is fine.
So right now I cannot see any questions. So, any comments on the dosage of melatonin for atopic dermatitis?
I don't know the exact dosage for atopic dermatitis, but it is given like 5 milligram, 10 milligram. But atopic dermatitis, I am not very much sure. I don't know
Okay.
exactly because I personally have not treated those patients.
Okay.
Any other thing?
If anybody has any more questions, we can ask, sir. We still have some time left.
Okay.
Do not see any more questions in the chat. I will definitely mail it to you if there are any.
Thank you.
Oh,
Thank you very
thank you
much.
so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye bye.